Tonight, a new sign the recession may be ending. Job losses slow sharply. But will the unemployed ever find a new job for the same pay? I'm Jeff Glor. Also tonight, they are getting louder.
I'm his father, and I want to talk to you face to face.
Town meeting protests against health care reform. Now, supporters of reform prepare to fight back. As Americans begin testing the H1N1 vaccine, the government tells parents how long to keep an infected child out of school. And a most unusual club gives Steve Hartman a tale with a storybook ending in tonight's Assignment America.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And good evening. Katie's on assignment. For the first time in 15 months, we can say this: the unemployment rate is down. The Labor Department reported today it fell a tenth of a point in July to 9.4%. And job losses slowed to just under 250,000, the lowest in a year. The White House tonight is cautiously optimistic. Here's Anthony Mason.
The bad news is getting better for the job market and the economy.
Hope you have a nice day.
This morning, we received additional signs that the worst may be behind us.
After averaging more than 600,000 jobs lost in the first 3 months of the year, for the past 3 months, the average loss has been cut by half. But the drop in the unemployment rate isn't all good news.
The unemployment rate went down because a lot of people, more than 400,000 people, actually left the labor force. For whatever reason, they've just decided to give up looking for a job.
And more than a third of those unemployed, 5 million people, have been out of work for more than 6 months. That's a record.
All of our jobs are posted on the website.
1,000 people turned out for a job fair in New York this week, sponsored by Monster.com.
Is the job market getting better at all?
I think a little before.
Khadidra Barnes' headhunting firm had 10 job openings.
Today, that's pretty good. I mean, if you ask me, last year is 10 good, you'll say no. But today, if you're saying is 10 good, 10 is great.
And in its latest survey of job postings on the internet, Monster.com is beginning to see a turn in some industries.
Retail, the energy sector, and transportation all showed small growth last month, along with government hiring. Even the battered real estate industry is showing glimmers of hope.
You would be responsible for going to real estate agents.
At the job fair, Alicia Raymond was recruiting salespeople for a small New York mortgage company.
But obviously this reflects some confidence in the economy.
Yes, I mean, we are doing well. We're looking to bring new people on, and we think there's a lot of opportunity for us to grow.
If the trend continues, the economy could start to create jobs again by the end of the year. But the unemployment rate is still expected to cross 10%. Jeff?
All right, Anthony Mason tonight, still a ways to go. Thank you, Anthony. When the economy does start creating jobs again, many are asking, what kind of jobs will they be and how much will they pay? Mark Strassman explains now new jobs may not pay as much as the old ones.
When Chuck Detman was downsized in the last recession, he launched a support group for the jobless.
Just kind of a chew session.
That was 8 years ago. We got the group together to gauge their progress.
Can anyone here say they have recovered yet?
Absolutely not. No.
New jobs were only the start of their recovery.
The earning power is not there. The salaries are not there.
I never had a thought that I was going to go out and do anything else.
But David Himmelhaber had to, after being let go as a graphic artist making $54,000. His next job paid him half that. He now teaches both high school and college, but still makes less than he used to. In fact, one recent study found most people who lose a job are still earning less 15 or 20 years later.
Every day I go to work thinking this could be my last day. It could happen all over again.
Bill Sankey's anxious, with good reason. Analysts say workers laid off once are more at risk to be laid off again. Sankey was let go as a computer programmer earning $55,000. He has lost his job twice since. Only now is he back earning roughly what he once did, but has spent all his savings.
I used to be very optimistic, but I'm no longer optimistic.
After some hard times, Karen is the group's success story. After losing a $69,000 job as a computer programmer, she also lost her house. Today, she's back programming computers, but earns more. And yet she's still insecure.
I don't know if it's going to be a full-time job for me for the next 10 years.
They all still rely on their support group to network and stay positive.
Never give up. That's the key.
Especially now, for every job opening, there are 6 people looking to fill it. Mark Strassman, CBS News, North Palm Beach, Florida.
To healthcare reform now as Congress begins its summer recess. The debate is moving outside Washington to town meetings all over the country, and opponents are raising the volume. Now, Chief White House correspondent Chip Reid tells us supporters of reform are trying to fight back.
This man would be given no care whatsoever.
In suburban Detroit, Congressman John Dingell was the target of so much anger at a town meeting on health care reform, they called the police.
Then arrest me and my son right now.
It's happening across the nation. From Tampa, Florida, where police got involved after a protest in the crowd turned violent, to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Critics of health reform say it's genuine grassroots anger. But Democrats say activists are orchestrating the protests. The evidence? Websites of conservative groups that list Democratic town halls and urge critics to go and be heard. And conservatives like Rush Limbaugh, who Democrats say are whipping activists into a frenzy, comparing President Obama's health care plan to Nazi policies.
Adolf Hitler, like Barack Obama, also ruled by dictate.
Unions and liberal supporters of the president say they're now mobilizing, hoping they'll soon outnumber the critics at town halls. The White House hopes that by remaining calm in the face of ferocious anger, the tactics of healthcare critics will backfire.
We can discuss these issues without being uncivilized. It's the same thing I tell my 6-year-old.
To give an idea of just how nasty this battle over health care reform has become, Capitol Hill police say they are now investigating a possible death threat by a constituent against a Democratic congressman from North Carolina. Jeff?
All right, Chip Reid tonight in Washington. Chip, thank you. Now to the H1N1 flu virus and concerns it could become stronger than ever this fall. It has hit the young in this country especially hard. At least 100 people 24 and under have died. And with 55 million children set to start school next week, federal health officials put out guidelines today for protecting them. Dr. John LaPook has more.
With H1N1 expected to surge in the fall, Veronica Jimenez's back-to-school list includes Kleenex, disinfecting solution, and an extra dose of caution.
She might look like a hypochondriac, but at the same time, we're protecting them.
Today, the Centers for Disease Control issued new guidelines, including a change in how long most children should stay home if they come down with the flu, 1 day after the fever is gone.
It used to be 7 days. Now it's 24 hours after fever goes away.
While the CDC expects the impact of H1N1 on schools will be worse this fall than last spring, officials believe the benefits of closing schools are often outweighed by the disruption.
You may reduce the spread of flu for a period of time, but you also increase the number of kids who may be unsupervised. You may add social stresses in the community.
Because outbreaks of flu are so hard to contain, health experts are focused on vaccination rather than relying on antiviral medications. A new analysis finds that Tamiflu and Relenza only reduce symptoms from seasonal flu by a day at most.
Our scientists are working hard to have a vaccine ready for consumption by mid-October.
I'm going to give you your first injection.
Today, the first of several thousand Americans got the experimental H1N1 vaccine in several sites to test its safety. Patients will most likely need 2 doses 3 weeks apart. 2 forms of the vaccine are being tested, a shot and a nasal spray.
We're trying to find out what strengths of vaccine, that is the amount of the virus that is needed in the vaccine, and how many doses are needed, 1 or 2.
Whatever happens with the new vaccine, experts strongly advise getting the regular seasonal flu vaccine as soon as possible. It should become available by the end of this month. Jeff?
All right, Dr. John LaPook, thank you so much tonight. Now to safety in the skies. CBS News has learned tonight that the FAA has plans to order airlines to replace the airspeed sensors known as pitot tubes on Airbus 330s. This follows reports that problems with the sensors left pilots on some domestic flights unsure about how fast they were going. Those planes all landed safely, but investigators believe malfunctioning pitot tubes may have played a role in the crash of Air France Flight 447 in June. Coming up next year tonight, another powerful congressman taking loans from a financial giant his committee oversees. We will follow the money. There is a job opening in the Senate. Florida Republican Mel Martinez, who had not planned to run for a second term, announced today he's resigning to spend more time with his family. Martinez, whose term expires in 16 months, said he'll leave as soon as Republican Governor Charlie Crist appoints a replacement. Crist is already running for that seat, but he said today he will not appoint himself to it. Now, an update tonight on a story Cheryl Atkinson has been investigating. Washington power brokers who got so-called VIP loans from a company at the center of the mortgage meltdown, Countrywide Financial. Another VIP name has surfaced. And once again tonight, Cheryl will follow the money.
Add Congressman Adolphus Towns to the growing list of influential Democrat and Republican VIPs who received loans from Countrywide Financial. That's significant because Towns, a Democrat, heads the committee investigating the mortgage lender's practices. And he personally is blocking the effort to subpoena Countrywide documents. Republican Darrell Issa is behind the subpoena effort.
It's really about what Countrywide sought to do, how vast it was, what they got for their millions of dollars in discounts, and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again.
A Countrywide whistleblower says the company aggressively courted those in position to influence regulations, as it made billions by giving out risky loans, then selling them to government-backed Fannie Mae. Billions of dollars worth of those loans defaulted at taxpayer expense. Today, the Senate Ethics Committee cleared Senators Kent Conrad and Chris Dodd of violating Senate gifts rules for getting VIP Countrywide loans. But the Ethics Committee said they should have exercised more vigilance and their VIP loan status should have raised red flags. Internal Countrywide emails leave no doubt as to why some congressional staffers received favorable loans, calling them a big supporter of Countrywide's or responsible for legislation of interest and importance to Countrywide. Towns received 3 loans from Countrywide, and Countrywide is listed as the mortgage holder on his Brooklyn property. Towns declined our interview request, his office saying he neither sought nor received any special mortgage benefits. For now, he continues to block the subpoena of documents that could list all the VIPs given special treatment by Countrywide and show what, if anything, Countrywide sought in return. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
When we come back here, the other crisis in Afghanistan, where drugs are cheaper than food and hundreds of thousands of children are hooked. There are reports tonight that a major terror figure has been captured or killed in Indonesia. Police surrounded a house in Java and traded shots with suspects holed up inside. The man they were after, Nurdin Top, is believed to be the mastermind of several deadly attacks, including the July 17 suicide bombings at the Marriott and Ritz-Carlton hotels in Jakarta. Meanwhile, it's looking more certain that the Taliban commander in Pakistan is dead. Baitullah Masood was apparently killed Wednesday by an American missile. More now from Richard Roth.
He was Pakistan's #1 public enemy, and America had a $5 million bounty on him, dead or alive. Baitullah Masood was believed to be in his late 30s, diabetic, and camera shy. It's not the first time the commander of Pakistan's Taliban militia has been reported killed, but it's the first time the claim has credibility from intelligence sources and from Masood's own lieutenants. And authorities say his followers are already picking a successor. The West blames Masood for the assassination of former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto and for a wave of violence in Pakistan, including the bombing of the Marriott Hotel there last September. The White House called him a murderous thug, and if he's been eliminated, said a Pentagon spokesman, that's a good thing. Richard Roth, CBS News, London.
Pakistan's neighbor Afghanistan has been shattered by 30 years of war. Its one growth industry is the production of opium, and cheap drugs are turning Afghanistan into a nation of addicts. From Kabul now, here's Mandy Clark.
Najibah introduces her children, Karima 13, Marjabeen 10, Nakibullah 7, Hila 4. Like her, they're all opium addicts. I started taking opium more than a decade ago, she says, when my 7-year-old son was killed by a truck. She started giving it to her children to stop them shivering in the winter. They've all had treatment before, but poverty led them back to drugs. Najibah says opium, which she boils as a tea to suppress hunger pains, is cheaper than a meal, and it brings her family some happiness. This is one of the few treatment facilities for women and children in Afghanistan, but the problem of family addiction is growing because few get help and many relapse. There are 1 million Afghan drug addicts, according to the United Nations, but drug counselors say the true number is at least double, with women and children making up 1/4 of the addicts. The stigma of drug abuse makes it a hidden problem. Even the government didn't know the extent of it.
Even Afghan community by itself was not aware of this big problem. Most of the people thought that we are producing only, but not consumption.
When it comes to producing heroin, Afghanistan is unrivaled, with over 90% of the world's supply, according to a recent United Nations study. Dr. Torpike Zazai runs the Family Treatment Center, treating over 100 children in West Kabul. She says children get addicted quicker, and it's harder for them to quit. For every addicted mother, there is on average 4 addicted children, she says. If something isn't done today, the country will lose a generation to drugs. Najibah's oldest child, 13-year-old Karima, is worried as well. She recently started taking opium on her own. I'm concerned my family will be addicts all their lives, she says. The family is planning to return to rehab. Karima hopes this time she'll beat the odds and become a normal teenage girl. But that will be difficult in a country which is the world's largest producer of opium poppies. Mandy Clark, CBS News, Kabul.
Coming up next year, Steve Hartman with one for the books in tonight's Assignment America. The yard sale is a staple of summer, but there is one this weekend that is sure to exhaust even the most dedicated bargain hunters. Billed as the world's largest yard sale, it stretches from West Unity, Ohio to Gadsden, Alabama. The annual sale started 22 years ago to get drivers off the highways and onto the back roads to shop. And it's worked, blossoming into a spectacle spanning 5 states, 654 miles of trinkets, chipped china, and old books. Finally tonight, books can open us up to whole new worlds. And as you're about to see, they can also bring 2 very different worlds together. Steve Hartman has a story we'll call The Odd Couple in tonight's Assignment America.
They met on Boston Common, 2 men with little in common. One, a well-heeled, high-powered attorney.
Oh boy.
The other, a street-schooled, often ignored, homeless person. Rob slept on a sidewalk. Peter had a swank condo in the back bay. But every morning they would cross paths here in the park. And over the course of several months, actually became good friends.
How are you? Oh, not bad. Yourself?
Good. How'd that happen? You'd think after weather and box scores, they'd run out of things to talk about. And indeed, they did.
So I gave Robert a copy of a book I really loved, Water for Elephants, and we would talk about that.
Discussing the book became their way of connecting, and a friendship was born.
And then one day I asked him, what'd you do with the book? And he said, I gave it to a fellow over there.
I knew there were a lot of people who read.
So it occurred to us that there was an interest out here that could draw people together.
Yeah, just because you're homeless doesn't mean you don't read.
I'm an avid reader. You'd be surprised at how many people actually read.
About a year ago, Peter and Rob started the Homeless Book Club.
Yeah.
The week we visited, the group was dissecting a collection of short stories by O. Henry.
O. Henry is always teasing the reader.
They meet every Tuesday in a church conference room. Peter buys the books. In the beginning, he offered to bring in lunch too, but the members said no thanks. They wanted this to be about more than just another free lunch.
For me, it's a place to go and escape.
And to question things.
Yeah, I feel more sophisticated.
She was hoping to win his heart over.
Unlike the others, Jamie, who lives in a rooming house, says he never used to be a reader. His addictions were the priority.
I picked up the first book and I started reading it and I found I couldn't put it down.
He's still addicted,
The adrenaline,
only now
it just gives me a rush.
to literature.
If I keep reading and keeping my mind occupied, I'm less likely to hurt myself in life. Behind his spectacles.
Testimonials like that are now inspiring other people in other cities, even other countries, to start putting together their own homeless book clubs. And as for the homeless man who helped start it all, Rob, turns out only reason he couldn't get subsidized housing was because he had an unresolved traffic ticket. Fortunately, he knows a good lawyer.
Peter was able to clear up that traffic ticket, which is why tonight Rob is no longer on the streets, housed and working as a church custodian.
What a great story. Thank you, Steve. I always encourage reading. What's coming up next week?
Next week, I'm not sure. We're going to do something on the 40th anniversary of Woodstock, which is next weekend. So we still have to figure out exactly what it is, but I'm sure I can find a story
Maybe
there somewhere.
submit some suggestions.
Yeah, I'm always looking for ideas.
All right. Steve Hartman, thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
That is the CBS Evening News for tonight. Katie will be back on Monday. I'm Jeff Glor, and I'll see you tomorrow on the Saturday Evening News. Good night.